If we could cherry pick one stat from Bobby Miller's season debut, I'd go with strikeouts per 9 inning. It was more than double Nolan Ryan's career mark. Unfortunately, by every other statistical measure, it was a clunker and makes us wonder what the future looks like for Bobby Miller. We're going to talk about it live now on Locked On Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Dodger fans, this is Locked On Dodgers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks to our everydayers for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen, and thanks to those of you who are with us live here on Wednesday evening. Remember, this show is free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers, so please subscribe wherever you're watching or listening right now. If this is your first time with us, my name is Jeff Snyder. That's my co-host next to me. That's Vince Samperio. Vince and I are both lifelong Dodger fans, just like most of you. We've also both spent time covering the Dodgers in the press box and the locker room, so we bring you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue every weekday morning. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. And Vince, we talk a lot about the best way to win a series, the best way to lose a series. I think this would qualify as the worst way to sweep a series, to jump out to big leads against the worst team in the league 3 times and then have, 2 of the 3 games get way too interesting and the other one more interesting than maybe it should have. This definitely continued that trend, and mostly that was Bobby Miller. We're going to talk about Bobby Miller. We'll talk about how the offense did just enough, and then at the end we'll talk about Clayton Kershaw's rehab start. But this game didn't end up being nearly as fun as it seemed like it was going to be in the bottom of the first inning.
Yeah, the first inning was fun. The rest of the game, not fun at all. And yeah, for sweeping a series, do you really feel better about this team overall? Maybe a little bit with the offense. We'll talk about that next. But even then, that left a lot to be desired. Bobby Miller left a lot to be desired. And yeah, I don't know. With guys getting healthy, with guys coming back, with guys pitching well, I just don't know. I don't want to say Bobby Miller's not going to be a factor for the Dodgers at all the rest of his life, but I don't feel strongly saying he is going to be a factor at any point in his life either.
Yeah, and that's really what it boils down to. It's like we are now a year and a half removed from Bobby Miller being good. If you don't, he had the one good start against the Cardinals, his first start of the year last year, and then he was lousy the rest of the year and then picked right up with that lousiness here. Chances are maybe he just wasn't ready to pitch in the big leagues yet this year because he has had command issues. The command issues didn't show up in the form of walks. He only walked 1 guy in his 3 innings of work. And like I said, he struck out 7 batters. The stuff was there, but the command kind of exhibited itself in making, getting behind in counts, and then making bad pitches in the strike zone. When you give up 8 hits in 3 innings, it's hard to say that anything went well in that game and they weren't cheap hits. They weren't bloop hits. He was getting hit hard when he was getting hit. It was kind of an all or nothing thing for the Rockies. A lot of nothing with the 7 strikeouts, but a lot of all too, with the 6 runs in 3 innings off of Bobby Miller. And you start to wonder, and we've talked a lot in the past about Bobby Miller's future role. If he was coming out of the bullpen knowing he only had to throw 1 inning, would he be throwing 102? If he was throwing 102, would that fastball be more effective than it is at 97, 98? And then having the other pitches to play off of could help. I don't know, the Bobby Miller I watched tonight, it's hard for me to picture him being a starting pitcher in a Dodgers uniform ever.
Yeah, like I said, at the very least right now, he's going to stay in the organization. He's going to go back to OKC and he's going to pitch there. And at some point, the Dodgers maybe need a spot starter again. But realistically, yeah, I don't know. It's kind of interesting. We haven't necessarily seen a lot of this on the pitching side. Usually, Dodgers pitchers, even if they have a really good Ricky year, and then don't figure it out, they're still relatively solid. We've seen it a little bit on the offensive side, maybe more so than this. But yeah, I just don't. I don't know, man. I like Bobby Miller. I liked him when they drafted him coming out of college. I liked him when he came up, and pitched really well for the Dodgers his rookie year. I liked him a lot after his first start last year, and it's just kind of fallen since then. I mean, the writing was on the wall a little bit when last year he was, by all we know, healthy enough to pitch, and the Dodgers went with bullpen games in the postseason rather than try Bobby Miller. And then this year, he had the unfortunate getting hit in the head in spring training, and you thought, okay, well, that'll buy him some time to stay down there. The Dodgers needed a spot starter earlier than they expected. And, I don't know. We've talked about turning him into a reliever, but I just don't know, man. It's one of those where I want to believe, but he's not giving me many reasons to believe right now.
Yeah, and I mentioned several times last year, I was sure that there was some physical issue and that's what caused him to be terrible last year. And I guess it's still possible that was a physical issue last year and he's still recovering the mechanics or permanently damaged, not still injured, but if the mechanics got messed up because of the injury, it might be gone for good. I was hoping that coming in healthy, he would be able to bounce back and just kind of be the guy we saw in 2023, not counting the game against the D-backs in the postseason. And that definitely isn't the case yet. I suspect the Dodgers won't give up on him as a starter yet. Obviously, the Los Angeles Dodgers will give up on him for a while. I mean, he will be optioned to AAA before most of the fans are out of the parking lot tonight, I assume. But there's just still there's so much potential there that if you could just figure out the one thing, why can't you command the ball? Because if he could command it, even with the fastball probably being too straight, I think if he could command it, you locate it. There's guys with much worse fastballs who succeed in the big leagues because of their command. And especially when you throw in that curveball and the changeup, which changeup he couldn't throw at all tonight. And I think that was part of the problem. If he had that third pitch, maybe they can't sit fastball as much because it's probably easier. I think a changeup probably plays better off a fastball as far as deception goes. Curveball may be easier to pick up out of the hand. And so a little easier to lay off it or whatever. And again, like I said, he got 7 strikeouts. They were struggling to hit it. I think most of the strikeouts were on the curveball. But yeah, I don't think they'll give up on him yet. I just I am at my personal low point as far as Bobby Miller optimism goes.
Yeah, I mean, and for us to be at that point with somebody with the talent that he does have, but yeah, and I don't, a lot of people put the mental side of things on Bobby Miller, and that might be true. We don't know him personally, and yeah, well, it seems like when you get runners on, things spiral, but that's probably because you have runners on in the first place. So I don't know what it is, but yeah, I mean, if we go the rest of the year without seeing Bobby Miller on the mound, that's not necessarily a bad thing for the Dodgers. Might be bad for Bobby Miller, but if we do see him on the mound again for the Dodgers, it doesn't necessarily mean a bad thing for the Dodgers. It maybe means that he figured something out in AAA and he makes a start later in the year. But I don't know. I think, you let him start the rest of this year because you might need some innings at some point, but maybe they start thinking about, hey, Bobby Miller, let's work on 2 pitches for sure, maybe a third pitch in that back pocket, and let's try 1 inning stints.
It's going to be so weird when he strikes out Rafael Devers to end the World Series. Just, we'll look back at this episode, man, remember what we were thinking about Bobby Miller back in April? Yeah, that's a pipe dream. But, stranger things have happened, I guess. Good stuff sometimes turns back into effectiveness. I did see one person in the chat saying we're making up an injury. He definitely had a knee issue last year and had a couple other little minor issues that weren't enough to keep him off the mound. And I do think it affected his command for sure. Also, one other comment I wanted to address. Cole said Ben Casparis is going to get worn out if he has to throw 3 innings every time he pitches. Luckily, this was his first 3-inning stint of the season, so we are still pretty far away from every time he pitches. But yeah, I mean, Ben Casparis definitely was a lifesaver tonight, and the offense did just enough to get the job done. Most of it in the first inning, but luckily they count all the runs from the whole game, and the Dodgers had more than the Rockies at the end of the game, thanks to that big first inning and just enough the rest of the game. We're going to talk about how much fun that would be if the Dodgers could do that big first inning a little bit more often. So thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen, and please keep it Locked On Dodgers. This episode is brought to you by Amazon. Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe or sign in to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty Black Ops 6 and Avowed as easily as you stream your favorite shows. It's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. I am super excited about this, genuinely, because I didn't know this until I started reading this ad copy the other day, and I thought, hey, my boys like to play video games. My boys like to use their Fire Stick in the car when we're driving to California. Our car has the TV screen and the HDMI port. We use our Fire Stick all the time for the boys to, watch Netflix, Prime Video, Disney Plus, Max, all those other things. I didn't know they could play Xbox too. They're going to be a big fan of that on our next road trip. And I will be a big fan of my boys having fun and, letting me drive in peace. So, you know what? Just head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube 3rd Gen. This episode is also brought to you by Game Time. Look, there's nothing better than catching an MLB game live. The crack of the bat, the roar of the crowd, the smell of ballpark food. And if you're looking to go last minute, Game Time makes getting tickets easier than ever. With last minute deals, all-in pricing, and a lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the stress out of buying MLB tickets. Plus, tickets prices drop as the game time gets closer, meaning you can score an incredible deal. I've used Game Time plenty of times for Dodger games, a couple basketball games, some concerts, and several comedy shows. And I've always loved how easy it is to get the guaranteed best price on any tickets I need. I especially like the Game Time Picks feature, which makes finding the best deals effortless. It filters out the fluff and highlights the top discounts in the stadium. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Hey, we're back. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Thank you for being an everydayer if you are. If you're not, it's easy to become one. Just watch or listen every weekday morning. Also, thank you again to those of you who are with us live here on Wednesday evening, right after the game. It was a fun game, and then it was a not fun game. And eventually, the most important part was fun because, like I said, the way they determine the winners, they count up the number of runs each team scored in the whole game, and the Dodgers had one more than the Rockies. Thanks in part to, thanks almost entirely to a big first inning in which the Dodgers, it was kind of funny. I would guess there's been several times this year and last year even that the 3 outs in the first inning were made by Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, and Teoscar Hernandez. But it usually doesn't happen that Mookie makes the first out and then Freddie batting right after him eventually makes the third out in the inning. Dodgers had 2 outs and only 2 runs in, 2 solo homers by Shohei Ohtani and Freddie Freeman when Teoscar Hernandez made the second out of the inning. And then eventually with Teoscar in the on-deck circle, Freddie Freeman made the third out of the inning. Bottom of the lineup came through, a little bit of help on defense from the Rockies not learning the Reds lesson and for some reason having Kyle Farmer at shortstop. And all in all, 7 runs in the first inning to put the Dodgers up 7-1 and seem to be cruising to an easy victory. That ended up not being the case, but let's talk specifically about how much fun a 7-run first inning is, Vince.
Yeah, I mean, putting up 7 runs in that first, especially with the guys that did it and the way they did, like you mentioned, having the 2 outs early in it. But then, you get Pajes to contribute. You even get Austin Barnes to contribute. Muncy contributes. There was a lot. You got, Shohei 2 at-bats. He had 2 hits in that first inning. It was what you want to see out of this offense, especially against, pitchers that aren't that good. We talked about this off air the other day with the Rockies, and you're like, man, the Rockies have been bad for a while, but I feel like every year you're facing a combination of Marquez, Senzatella, and Kyle Freeland. They didn't face Freeland in this series, but they faced Senzatella and Marquez, and they did very well against them because they're not good pitchers, and that's probably why the Rockies aren't that good anymore. So, it was great to see. They clinched if you're in LA, they clinched the McNuggets for you in that first inning, getting this over 6 runs, and then there was still some good the rest of the game, and this is a third straight game that they've had 10 plus hits. So even if it wasn't the most fun way to sweep a series, at least you can't complain too much about the offense, even though there was runners left on base.
Yeah, you if you want to nitpick, you could say, well, they only scored 1 run after the first inning. But again, we talk all the time about the boomer bust thing, and I firmly believe boomer bust only counts on a per game level, not on a per inning level, because it's very rare to have a game where you score every inning. Those games you end up scoring 20 runs, because when you're having that good a game, you score multiple runs sometimes. Much more common to win because you had a couple big innings. In this case, one very big inning and one big enough inning later. They did miss a couple chances. It's definitely, I think tomorrow on our off day episode, we'll probably dig in a little bit to Michael Conforto, because Conforto is slumping very badly and specifically killing rallies with double plays. I understand Scott Alexander's only reason for existence is to get a double play grounder. But Michael Conforto understands that too. You got to get that ball in the air. Little things like that. There's plenty of things you could quibble with, but in the end, the Dodgers did score 8 runs. And yes, it was against a guy, German Marquez, who isn't the ace that he used to be. But you know what? He's not a terrible pitcher at this point. The Dodgers made him look like a terrible pitcher tonight. He's not a terrible pitcher. And Brian Feltner, who they beat yesterday, actually has been pitching pretty well this year, is a pretty darn good pitcher. And the Dodgers just kind of took him behind the woodshed and knocked him out of the game really early. And, I guess the most surprising part of this series maybe was that the Dodgers were kind of unable to do very much against this Rockies bullpen that isn't very good, hasn't been very good. And I guess if there's one disappointment for me of this series is that the Dodgers didn't take more advantage of getting to see a whole lot of the Rockies bullpen.
Yeah, 10 plus hits a game was fun. 10 plus runs a game this series would have been more fun. And they had the opportunities. They had runners on in a lot of these games. Conforto hitting the 3 double plays. The Dodgers, Chris Taylor hitting 2 double play, base loaded in yesterday's game. There was a lot of chances to put up more runs. But the good thing is that they were getting people on base, because heading into this series, the Dodgers were ranked in the bottom half in at-bats with runners on and at-bats with runners in scoring position. They were, I think, 19th and 24th in that, or maybe 16th and 24th coming into the series. But their OPS with runners in scoring position was 4th, and their OPS with runners on was top 10. So, they're hitting well with runners on base and runners in scoring position. They just weren't getting a lot of opportunities. We talked about it with Ohtani. He's got some more opportunities for runners on base. He didn't necessarily do too much with it in the series overall, but he still had those chances, and he did do it in that first inning. So yeah, there's a lot to like about the offense. They're still in one of those, other than that first inning, they're still kind of, maybe even in that first inning, they're still in that way where everyone's doing well-ish in that top of the order still, but all at different times, it appears. So when they can get them all in one inning or multiple times throughout the game, the Dodgers will be in a good spot. And that's what I'm looking forward to seeing, Freddie, Mookie, and Shohei all getting synced up and having some big innings again.
Yeah, one bright spot in this game offensively was Max Muncy. He had 2 hits, hit the ball hard. His second hit, he almost hit a home run and twice almost hit doubles down the line before finally hitting a 108-mile-an-hour line drive for a base hit to right field. Hit the ball hard 4 times just in that one at bat. Had 2 hits and a walk. The last 4 games, I think 3 or 4 games, he's totally kind of looked more like Max Muncy when it comes to walking. Tonight, he also looked more like Max Muncy when it comes to hitting the ball hard. That would be so huge for this Dodgers team if Max Muncy could remember how to be Max Muncy, where he's taking walks, not striking out, not chasing pitches, and hitting the ball hard when he does swing. That would be huge for this team.
Yeah, that gives you 6 guys that are, playing relatively well in your order, and then you got to worry about the other 3. But yeah, walks are huge. Not to be the stats guy today, but coming into the series, the Dodgers ranked tied for 8th in walks in the league, and now they're in 4th place in walks. They've been 2nd place in walks from 2021 to 2024. So that's another way you get guys on base, is walks. And Dave Roberts talked about it pregame on Tuesday or Monday about how guys seem to be wanting to cover all parts of the plate, not necessarily having a plan when they go to the plate. And that's a big thing. If you go to the plate looking for one specific area, one specific pitch, hey, you might not get it, but if you do get it, you can do some damage with it. And I think that's what the Dodgers need to start doing.
Yeah, hopefully soon. It's Teoscar Hernandez is back in this game, looked pretty bad, but hopefully it was just remnants of the illness, and he'll feel better on Friday after a nice off day and a reasonably short flight to Texas. Speaking of Texas, speaking of the pitching staff, which a lot of people in the chat are, Clayton Kershaw had his first rehab start of the season for Oklahoma City. It went well, and we have a little bit more clarity on what the Dodgers rotation might look like over the next coming weeks. And hopefully it means less of these frustrating starts. We'll dig into that. So thank you for making us your first listen, and please keep it locked on Dodgers. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Basketball and hockey playoffs are heating up, and there's no better way to turn your sports knowledge into real rewards than with Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy. With Prize Picks, you simply pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, and you're in. You can even combine players across sports, basketball, hockey, baseball, and more for your chance to win up to 2,000 times your cash. As I said, you can do it. You can cross sports. So if you're following the basketball playoffs, you're a big Lakers fan, you want to go with Luka or LeBron or any of those guys, Austin Reeves, how many points they're going to score, and you want to combine that with Connor McDavid in the NHL playoffs and Shohei Ohtani or Tommy Edman or somebody in baseball. You can do that. You can mix and match all of that. You just make your lineup, pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, and you've got a really good chance to win. So download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONMLB in the Prize Picks app to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. We are back. Thank you again for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Thanks for being in every day. Or if you are, you can go beyond the podcast and become a Locked On Dodgers insider by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. To our Discord server. We've had a lot of fun talking Dodgers in there the last several days. Really a fun place to be. So check that out. It's just a few bucks a month with a free 14-day trial at joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. Also, for your second listen, check out Locked On MLB, hosted by our buddy Paul Francis Sullivan, a.k.a. Sully. So Clayton Kershaw, future Hall of Famer, Dodgers legend, and still current Dodger, made his first rehab start with Oklahoma City on Wednesday morning. Vince, I know you and I both watched it. He went 3 innings, very efficient and effective. I wouldn't say, okay, he's ready to go. Definitely not because of pitch count. And even stuff-wise, the fastball velocity, it got up close to 89 miles an hour, and we're not expecting much more than that from him, but it started out more in the 86-ish range and worked up to there. And so I think there's definitely it's not a bad thing that Kershaw's not eligible to come off the injured list for a little while still, another month, at least a month.
Yeah, does it count? It counts from March,
I think it's from
17th or whatever. 18th?
Yeah, the 17th or 18th, whenever it was that they were officially
about a month.
Yeah, so another month before he can come off the IL. But it seems like, based on this, that I would guess he'll be ready around that time, about a month from now, because that's long enough for 5 more rehab starts, even with plenty of rest.
Yeah, it was, one, to see him on the mound again, and honestly, a lot more advanced. And I guess maybe they didn't let on to how advanced Kershaw was, because it did seem to come out of nowhere that, he's throwing a rehab start, like at the start of the week, to get mentioned. And then, for him to pitch well. And, they didn't have the curveball command, but, that happens even when he's fully ready to go. Sometimes he doesn't have curveball command. Slider looked really good. Fastball, he was able to move it in and out, even, with the velocity being not where he probably will be once he's fully built up. He threw some what was categorized as splitters on game day. He talked about a little bit after the game and mentioned it was kind of like change up more, but he wanted to go away from lefties rather than downward movement. So he's working on stuff to continue to get better. But yeah, I mean, it's a good sign that, in a month, the Dodgers will have him back. Tony Gonsolin's supposed to make another rehab start, and I would imagine he's getting close to being back. So we could see in a month the Dodgers in that 6-man rotation, and then just waiting for Ohtani after that, assuming everyone else stays healthy.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of mentions of Walker Buehler's name in the chat about, well, why didn't the Dodgers keep Walker Buehler or even Jack Flaherty, instead of having to go with these starts from Bobby Miller and Justin Robleski and Landon Knack. And the fact is, in free agency, players get a choice, and we talked about this at the time that Buehler signed with the Red Sox. I think the Dodgers would have given Buehler that same contract, but I think the Red Sox are a better fit for him with what his goal is, which is to get a big payday next offseason. And, he wants to be the man or the number 2 man. And with the Dodgers, he would have been the number 5 starter or whatever. And these guys are pitching because Blake Snell is hurt and because Shohei Ohtani is not ready yet. And
Gonsolin's hurt.
Yeah, and Gonsolin's hurt. So this depth that the Dodgers have at pitching, it feels less deep right now because the current batch of depth is pitching poorly for them. But overall, this is early season depth. Later in the season, when they do have, when Snell returns, and you have Ohtani, and you have Kershaw, and you have Emmett Sheehan, those guys, suddenly there will be times when you have healthy guys who deserve to be making starts, and there's just not room for them. That's the kind of depth you're looking for, because you want to have situations where you have to make those hard decisions and say, oh, let's, maybe we do send Gonsolin to the minors for a while, even though he's pitching well enough, because we have too many good pitchers. That's the Dodgers' dream right now, is to have too many good pitchers. Right at this moment, it's not that way because of the injuries, but also they're now 14-6, and that's what the depth does. That even with all of this crap going on, the Dodgers are still playing relatively well, still have a very good record, the 3rd best record in baseball. And, it just so happens that they also have the 3rd best record in the National League West.
Yeah. And with the pitching, let's just say you had signed someone before the season and you don't go to 6-man rotation to start the year, then, what happens with Dustin May, who's been off to a really great start as a starting pitcher. And, Tony Gonsolin, what we saw in spring was a lot of good. What we've seen in his rehab starts, a lot of swing and miss, a lot of good. It's just a matter of Gonsolin got hurt, Snell got hurt. You're down 2 guys. All three guys that you've called up haven't necessarily shown out very well, but they did in the last 2 years. Miller probably is more out of necessity. Knack just, had one bad start and one okay start, and then Robleski just had the one. So we're probably going to see one of them again the next time through. And then Gonsolin should probably be back by then, and then they'll have a decision to make. But, yeah, I mean, the pitching is fine. The starting pitching is really good, other than the one time through the order where they have to throw somebody that's not one of the starters that they expected to have going into the season.
Yeah, and kind of still question marks on Roki Sasaki, as he is still definitely at some point in that learning curve. Alex in the chat says it's a pipe dream. There's always injuries on this team. But that's actually kind of the point, Alex. That's because there will be injuries. And so the Dodgers' goal this offseason was, let's make sure that even when there are injuries, we have 4 healthy, good pitchers in October. And the way to do that is to start with 9, because last year they started with 5 and they ended up with 2. And, that's the whole mindset. Of course, there's going to be injuries, especially when you have guys who, either are injury prone or, have at least risks of injury or whatever. The goal, though, is to get 4 guys healthy at the right time in October, so you can have a good regular season and a great October. That's the goal for this team.
Yeah, and I feel like we're living more in the moment of time right now, as just you and I as podcasters, where some of these episodes haven't been as, oh yeah, Dodgers will be fine, Dodgers will be fine, Dodgers will be fine. Yeah, there are issues right now, but issues on April 16th have nothing to do with issues, on October 1st or whenever playoffs start, probably late September of this year. Like everything right now is an issue right now. And if it continues to be an issue, then obviously, there's concern. But for now, they are winning, even if it's not the prettiest. And they'll have, some good matchups coming up to kind of continue to show, okay, or did we just win because we faced the Rockies, or is the team actually not as bad as maybe some people think it is?
Yeah, and maybe they can play up to the competition. And the fact is they are on pace for 113 wins, and we still have people in the chat referring to them as so-so, and us kind of agreeing. That's kind of tells you about this team. The way it's built, it is built to be a juggernaut, and right now it's not playing like a juggernaut, so they're only on pace to win 113 games. Maybe it's high expectations, and I'm okay with that. I think they're going to be okay. I know they're going to be okay, and it'll be fun to see how they're okay. But like I said earlier, if Max Muncy can step up, if Michael Conforto can figure it out, kind of helping a lot with that. Andy Pye has had 2 big hits tonight. That was nice to see, especially if they end up in a situation where they do need to be platooning Conforto or something. Pye has some left field. Helps on the defensive side too, whoever's replacing him in center field. So if he could start hitting, that would be good. All sorts of stuff. Like Vince said, only time will tell how much of this offensive breakout the last 3 games is because they're playing the Rockies and how much is because they are a good hitting team that is past their slump. We will see a little bit against the Rangers.
DeGrom on Friday, who has already seen some diminished velocities early in this year. So we'll see.
Yeah, DeGrom and then Evaldi. So there will be some challenges. So it'll be a good challenge. And then they got 2 more against the Cubs, and then we're done with the Cubs for the year. So let's hope they can stretch this winning streak to 8 games by the time they come back home, and maybe be in first place by then. You got anything else for today, Vince?
Nothing else. Let's go.
All right. Well, that'll do it for us. Thank you all for being here. A really good group here in the chat tonight. We appreciate all of you being here with us live. I know this was a game that a lot of people wanted to talk about, and so we are happy to oblige you there. Thank you for making us your first listen. If you're not an everydayer, it's easy to become one. Just watch or listen every weekday morning. You can make that easier on yourself by subscribing wherever you're watching or listening right now. You can check out the new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can go beyond the podcast and become a Locked On Dodgers insider by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Locked On Dodgers. Vince is on Twitter at VinceSince91. I'm on Twitter at Snydog, and both of our DMs are open over there. You can also email us anytime you want, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or send us a voicemail or a text message to 323-863-LOCK5625. We are here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us. When you get in your car or sit on your couch, tell your smart device to play podcast Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Have a good one.